Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending the 2025 Summer EBT or Sunbucks webinar for schools. My name is Missy Wellington, and I'm a special projects coordinator with the Center for Schools and Communities, which is a division of the Central Susquehanna Intermediate Unit, or CSIU. I'll be presenting today. For those of you that have joined the webinar, there are three things in the chat area for you. One is a link to a question form, and at any time during the presentation, please use that form to submit a question. You may want to wait a little to see if your question's answered during the presentation, but you're welcome to submit questions as you have them. I'll try to answer as many questions as possible in the time remaining at the end of the presentation. But if I don't get to your question, we will contact you promptly after the presentation. And second, you should see a copy of the slides for this presentation. We'll also put the webinar slides and a recording of this webinar on the Sunbucks webpage for schools in coming days. The webpage is listed on the resources slides near the end of the presentation. But that webpage where all the resources you will need, the webpage is pasebt.com. And third is the student file template that schools will need to follow for their 2025 Sunbucks student file that's due in June. So that's the third thing that you'll see in your chat area. Last things before we start, acronyms are used in this presentation, and I know that can be confusing to folks who may not be familiar with all of them. So to assist, there's a list of acronyms at the end of the presentation slides for your reference. And there is some repetition in this presentation for things that are important, but I'll try not to dwell too long on the things that repeat. Okay, let's begin. So the goal for today's session is to provide all Pennsylvania sponsors of the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program with the information needed to create their 2025 Sunbucks student file and to guide families to resources they need. We know that families often turn to their schools, so we want to make sure you know what resources you can give them to guide them to where they need to be. The topics we're going to cover are listed here, and these are clickable links inside the webinar slides so that if you want to use this as a reference in the future, you can just click on the section, the item, and go to that section for instruction. So some of the items that we're covering today include a little bit of background, some key 2025 dates, followed by a discussion of the children, which children are eligible for the Sunbucks benefit, the Sunbucks application for families who are not automatically eligible. We'll talk about the school's role with Sunbucks and things schools should prepare for to make the file submission easier. We'll cover how schools can guide families who ask them questions. We're going to go over the student file that schools must submit in June, including the pointers for laying out that file, the actual layout of the file, and how to upload the file. And we'll also discuss some common errors that occur with file uploads. There is a dynamic query available to full users of the Pennsylvania Student Eligibility System, which is also known as PASES, or by its software name Primero Edge. So if you're a full user of that system, there's a query in the system that allows you to pull your Sunbucks file directly from that system. We'll then discuss items unique to CEP schools and RCCIs. And near the end, I'll make sure to that you're clear on all the Sunbucks resources available to schools and to families. And finally, we should have time left for anyone who wishes to stay for questions. Based on feedback from schools, we're going to spend a bit more time this year making sure schools are comfortable with how to guide families who approach them with questions. At the end of 2022, the US Congress authorized this new permanent program called Summer EBT, or Sunbucks. And through this program, states, territories, and some tribal nations provide $120 to low-income families with school-age children to purchase food over the summer months. The USDA oversees the program, and they successfully piloted this program in a group of states for over a decade and found that it significantly reduced food insecurity and improved nutrition of children who were recipients. The pilot program demonstrated a 33% decrease in the most severe childhood food insecurity and an 8% decrease in childhood food insecurity overall. The program was used nationally during the pandemic and became permanent with Sunbucks. The program commenced nationally last summer, and the $120 benefit is equivalent to $40 for each of the 3 summer months per eligible child. The benefit is used like Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, or SNAP. Recipient families use the funds to purchase groceries at food retailers who take SNAP. Sunbucks works with other USDA nutrition programs to connect every child with nutritious food in the summer. And as a result of the time and effort NSLP participating schools took to collaborate with DHS, PDE, and CSIU, Pennsylvania was able to distribute Sunbucks to 1.18 million eligible students in the summer of 2024. Pennsylvania is one of 49 entities participating in the Sunbucks program for the summer of 2025. Let's review the stakeholders in the program. The USDA is the oversight agency at the federal level. And in Pennsylvania, the Pennsylvania Department of Human Services and Department of Education are jointly responsible for implementing the program. DHS is the agency which consolidates data necessary to determine and issue the benefits, and PDE assists DHS with program planning and outreach, and they oversee the school support activities that we here at CSIU perform. School food authorities, or SFAs, assist DHS by submitting Sunbucks student files, which are used as part of the benefit determination process by DHS. We here at CSIU will once again act on behalf of the state agencies as the main program support organization for schools. And probably the most important stakeholders are the eligible student households which receive the benefit. Before moving on, let's summarize the key aspects of Sunbucks. Each household receives the $120 benefit per eligible child. DHS issues the benefits at the household level. In other words, if 3 children in a household are eligible for Sunbucks, the benefit is consolidated into one issuance to the family if possible. This is different than pandemic EBT, where the benefits were issued to each individual student. DHS follows a hierarchy for distributing the benefits. They first attempt to issue benefits to the family's state EBT card, which is also known as the PA Access card, if possible. If that's not available, they issue benefits on the family's previously issued Sunbucks card. And if that's not available, they issue benefits on a new Sunbucks card and mail it to the family. The method DHS uses to distribute benefits does also depend on how each child is found eligible. DHS uses several data sources to determine Sunbucks eligibility. They first use their own data, their own case records, which is the direct certification master file at DHS, which includes all the children that receive SNAP, TANF, or Medicaid with qualifying income. Second, they use the data from student files submitted by schools in June and September of 2025. And third, they will use data from Sunbucks applications that families submit through DHS Families will only need to apply for Sunbucks if their child is not found automatically eligible. We'll talk about that a little bit later. And again, DHS will start issuing Sunbucks benefits in mid-July, and benefits are expunged 4 months after the date of issuance. Let's review some key dates. These April webinars will be the kickoff for informing schools of 2025 Sunbucks information. The Sunbucks School Help Desk is available to assist schools right now with any questions that they have. After these webinars, CSIU will reach out to all schools, including ones who are not in attendance at the webinars, to make sure that all schools have the key dates and all the resources that they need to be able to produce their Sunbucks file and to assist families when necessary. In May, we'll also send to all school credentials used for uploading their student files. During April and May, schools should work to ensure student eligibilities and addresses are current in their systems. Schools should concentrate on verifying the addresses of students who have free or reduced price meal eligibility due to household income applications, and any students who have other categorical eligibility, such as foster, homeless, migrant, and runaway students. These are the students that DHS will rely on school-submitted information for student addresses. From June 1st through the 30th, the Sunbucks file upload site will be open for schools. And during this time, as CSIU receives files from schools, we will transmit them securely to DHS as they're received. By the beginning of July, an updated Sunbucks application for families will be available on the DHS Sunbucks website or at county assistance offices. And again, very few families will need to apply. We'll talk about that. Starting in mid-July, DHS will issue the Sunbucks benefits to families. August 31st is the deadline for families that wish to apply for the benefit because they're not automatically eligible. That's the deadline for them to submit their application. And there's a new item in September. Non-CEP schools, again, that's non-CEP schools, will be asked to submit a second file of just those 24-25 students whose meal eligibility changes from paid to free or reduced due to a household meal application from the time of the school's June file through August 31st. We're working with DHS to establish the due dates for these files. It will be no later than the third week in September, and we'll get back to schools as soon as possible on all the details. And lastly, Sunbucks benefits are expunged 4 months after issuance. The majority of students who are eligible for Sunbucks will be found so automatically. USDA calls this streamlined certification. And the scenarios for automatic eligibility are, number one, the student was enrolled anytime during 24-25 in an NSLP school and qualified for free or reduced price meals based on direct certification by extension within the household, other categorical eligibility, such as homeless, foster, migrant, runaway, or Head Start. And for the Head Start students, it's only the Head Start students that are offered NSLP or SBP meals. And then lastly, students that are free and reduced due to a household meal application. The second way a child is automatically eligible for Sunbucks is if they do not attend an NSLP participating school, but are found on the state's master DC list and are of compulsory school age, which is 68 to 18 years. Note, the compulsory school age requirement only applies to the students identified this way. Any family whose child or children were not found automatically eligible, but they feel they should be eligible, can apply for Sunbucks. We'll talk about the application in a minute. And one important note about CEP schools, students who attend CEP schools are not automatically eligible for Sunbucks, even though they receive free meals during the regular school year. Sunbucks is based on a child's regular NSLP meal eligibility. So for CEP schools, only the students who are DC or categorically eligible will automatically receive Sunbucks. So I've mentioned already that most families of eligible students will not need to apply for Sunbucks. The majority of students will be captured automatically by being eligible for free or reduced meals at NSLP schools. Families with questions about whether their child is automatically eligible or if they need to apply should be guided to use the Eligibility Navigator tool, which is on the DHS website, which is listed on this slide, and you're going to see that it'll be listed throughout a lot of these slides. The self-guided series of questions in the Navigator tells the family if a child's automatically eligible, not eligible, or if they should apply. Families who do want to apply can find the application in English and Spanish via online link on the DHS Sunbucks webpage. A paper version of the application is available upon request at county assistance offices. And a link to the county assistance offices locator is in the resources section of this presentation. DHS will review Sunbucks applications to first confirm the student attended an NSLP school. If they did not attend an NSLP school, the application is not going to be approved. And then so that would be, in this case, the 24-25 school year. They make sure that the child attended an NSLP school. And second, that the family's income is at or below 185% of the federal poverty levels at the time of the application. And there's a link to the federal poverty income levels for Sunbucks in the resources section. Those federal poverty levels change on July 1st, so that link will be updated. Families that are denied the benefit based on their application will be sent denial letters from DHS. So if a family comes to a school asking why they were denied, schools need to tell the families that they cannot assist with a question like that they should refer to their denial letters and guide them back to contacting DHS. 2025 Sunbucks applications, again, will be available July 1st on the DHS website, and applications submitted by August 31st will be considered for the 2025 Sunbucks benefit, and ones received after August 31st will be considered for next year. So let's quickly review some student eligibilities, just to give you some examples. So the first is a 4-year-old Head Start student who attends an NSLP school. And yes, that child would be eligible. The school would report that child as free, and because Head Start students are categorically eligible for free meals. And then DHS will only capture these students if the school reports them. We had some unfortunate situations last year where schools who fed NSLP meals to Head Start students did not put them on their Sunbucks report. And those children, DHS had to intervene and ask us to work with the schools to get the data for those children. An 8-year-old student who attends a CEP school but is not DC or categorically eligible, that child might be eligible. The school would report this child as paid, but the family could apply for the benefit, and if they meet the qualifying criteria, they could get the benefit. A 10-year-old homeschooled child who never goes to class at their school, and the answer to that is maybe they would be eligible. The school would not report this child because they're 100% homeschooled. So those children do not go on the Sunbucks file. But if that child is on the state's DC list, they will receive Sunbucks since they're within the compulsory school age. Next is a student who attends an NSLP school and is DC free by extension from another DC child in the same household economic unit. The answer is yes, that child would receive Sunbucks because the school would report them as free, and they would get the benefit because DHS would use the school data for that. If the school neglects to report this child as free, then the child would not receive Sunbucks, and they could apply, but they'd have to apply by August 31st to get this year's benefit. Next is a 22-year-old student who attends an NSLP school and is DC free due to Medicaid with qualifying income. The answer is yes. The school would report this child as free, and there's no age restriction for Sunbucks if a student attends an NSLP school and is eligible for free or reduced meals. Next is a child care student, age 3, who eats free meals at a preschool that is not NSLP. And the answer is no. This child does not attend an NSLP school, so they won't be reported by the school. And also, DHS will not capture them from the state's DC list because they're not of compulsory school age. And lastly, a 7-year-old who attends an NSLP school was paid status in 24-25, and their household income decreases in June 2025. And the answer is maybe. The family would need to submit a Sunbucks application, and they will receive Sunbucks if DHS shows that they're 185% or less of federal poverty levels. So for benefit issuance, unlike pandemic EBT, the Sunbucks benefit is issued at the household level. And again, the example of 3 eligible children in a household, that household's going to receive $360, which is $120 combined benefit for each child. The method DHS uses to distribute benefits will vary depending on how the child was determined eligible. It will either be put on the family's state EBT card, again known as the access card, if available, otherwise on a previously issued Sunbucks card, if available, and lastly, a new Sunbucks card mailed to the family. It helps schools to have general knowledge of where DHS issues Sunbucks to understand the program as a whole. And this can help schools when they're trying to guide families to the resources they need. But I want to be very clear, schools are not expected to answer benefit issuance questions for families. In fact, they shouldn't answer those questions because they don't want to give the family wrong information. Schools should always guide families with specific benefit questions to the DHS statewide customer service center or their county assistance offices. And again, those resources are listed in the resources section. However, there are several things schools can advise families about the issuance of Sunbucks. First, families should save their previously issued Sunbucks cards in the event DHS issues future benefits on that card. Second, schools can tell families the hierarchy DHS uses to issue Sunbucks. And again, that hierarchy is the state EBT card if possible, otherwise a previous Sunbucks card, if possible, otherwise a new Sunbucks card. And third, they can tell families benefits will be issued beginning in mid-July 2025. And fourth, they can share with families that benefits are expunged 4 months after issuance. Schools that are NSLP or SBP sponsors have 2 critical roles with Sunbucks. Family guidance when families inevitably approach them with questions, and the student data file submissions. Schools often ask why they're asked to play a role in the program. And first, I just want to say that the state agencies are very grateful for the assistance schools have provided throughout the whole pandemic EBT program and now Sunbucks, despite not being mandated to do so. Nearly 100% of all NSLP schools in Pennsylvania submitted a Sunbucks file in 2024. So the first reason that schools are asked to help is so that DHS has accurate student data that is critical for them to confirm that a given child attended an NSLP school. And two, to identify all the students who qualify for free or reduced meals that only schools identify. So these would be free and reduced students that DHS won't know about unless the schools report them. And this includes free and reduced students due to a household meal application, DC extensions within households, and the other categorically eligible students, which are the foster, homeless, runaway migrant, and Head Start. The integrity of student data is critical to the Sunbucks program. And last year, I'm very happy to report that out of 1.7 million student records submitted by Pennsylvania schools, only about 9,000 had known errors. And most of those errors were from a few schools that had some unfortunate sorting issues, which misaligned all of their student data in their student file. So the percentage rate, that's a 0.53% error rate out of 1.7 million records, which is excellent. But the only problem is that even though that's a very low error rate, those 9,000 records that had errors have to be manually corrected by DHS one by one. So it is very helpful when schools you submit files that are of the utmost integrity. And the second reason schools are asked to help is for family guidance. Even though families are told in multiple ways that they need to talk to DHS about their benefit questions, the families often turn to their schools as trusted sources of information. The schools, however, are limited in their ability to assist. So they must find a way to guide those families back to DHS. And we'll talk about it, how you can do that. And then I wanted to mention, it's a little premature, but in the future, the plans are PDE is always dedicated to streamlining processes as much as they can for schools that they work with. Schools, PDE, and CSIU agree that extracting student data from the system that you already use, which is PASES or Primero Edge, makes sense. And right now, we in PDE are working on a project to assess how to accomplish that. So hang tight and know that everything you do for Sunbucks is very appreciated by the state agencies. So some things that schools can do to prepare for the June student file is to first make sure that your 24-25 DC matching is current at the time that you create the student file. And this includes making sure that you've made potential matches and sibling matches in PASES, or again, Primero Edge. Make sure student household addresses and other data are current in the systems that you're going to use to create the Sunbucks file, particularly for those students that the DHS needs your information to know about. And those would be your household application students, your other categorically eligible students, the foster, migrant, runaway. And make sure that those other categorically eligible students, which again are foster, homeless, runaway, migrant, and Head Start, are identified as free in your system. The Sunbucks phrase that says, if you feed and claim meals for a student, you must report them, applies to Sunbucks. So this means if your school food authority feeds and claims meals for students from another LEA, you must put those students on your Sunbucks file. And this may involve contacting the other LEA now to obtain the student information you need to put those students on your file. Another thing schools should do is to notify their system vendor of the 2025 student file requirements if you wish for them to create a Sunbucks file out of that system. And full PASES users, so the Primero Edge users who are full users have access to that dynamic query in the system to create their Sunbucks file. However, when schools used that dynamic query last year, they found that they had some data holes in the Primero Edge system. So now would be the time, if you plan on using that dynamic query, to fill the holes that you have in your data in Primero Edge. And that can include, or if you're not going to put the data in Primero Edge, make sure you have a plan for grabbing the data that you need to add to the dynamic query. And that would include parent and guardian names, which are, of course, are not required in Primero Edge, but they are required in Sunbucks. So if you use the query and you don't have guardian and parents in Primero Edge, they're not going to appear and you're going to have to put them in. Other things would be PA secure IDs. Other categorically eligible students, you want to make sure those are identified as free in PASES, and that any other LEAs who you serve meals to their students that are not your students, you want to make sure you have a plan for getting that data onto your report. We talked about how families often turn to schools for information, but again, the most detailed Sunbucks questions can't be answered by schools. So there are several things that PD and DHS recommend that schools do to assist families. First, consider posting Sunbucks information for families on the school's website or sending texts or emails to families to make sure families who inquire have the following information, which includes the DHS Sunbucks webpage, the DHS statewide customer service center telephone numbers, a collection of Sunbucks family flyers, which will be at the bottom of the DHS Sunbucks website very soon, county assistance office locator link if they need to know where their county assistance office is, and the 2025 income eligibility guidelines link if they're going to apply and want to see what the income levels are. And then let them know about a pre-recorded FAQ line for families. Second, you want to confirm that anytime a parent approaches you with the Sunbucks question, you should first check your report that you submitted for 2025 Sunbucks to make sure that you reported the student information correctly. If you find an error, you should contact us at the Sunbucks School Help Desk. But if no error is found in the data that you submitted, you should guide the parent to the DHS resources and explain that they need to talk to DHS. Third, you should make sure that parents are aware that there's an eligibility navigator tool on the DHS webpage. And this is what the first screen of that navigator looks like. And the webpage for DHS, again, is listed on this slide. And that it takes them on a self-guided list of questions that once they answer the questions, it will give them the result of whether their child is automatically eligible for Sunbucks, not eligible, or need to apply. Fourth, schools can guide families on the most common questions that families ask. A, Sunbucks cards should be retained. B, students are automatically eligible for Sunbucks and do not need to apply if they're eligible for free or reduced meals at an NSLP school. C, families whose children are not automatically eligible may apply for Sunbucks on the DHS webpage. D, not all CEP students are automatically eligible for Sunbucks. Only the DC students and the other categorically eligible students at CEP schools will automatically receive the benefit. All other student families should apply for the benefit at CEP schools. E, DHS will begin issuing benefits in mid-July. F, DHS will issue benefits again to the state EBT card, otherwise the Sunbucks card from last year, or a new Sunbucks card. And that's the hierarchy that's followed. And G, the family must contact DHS for their specific questions. Now we'll shift to discuss the Sunbuck school files that schools must submit. All school food authorities that participate in NSLP must submit a student file in June. And that file should list every student who was offered and claimed meals for at any time during the 24-25 school year at all sites covered by the SFA's school nutrition program. So the list on the Sunbucks file may look different than just a standard enrollment file from the school, because you need to make sure that you're following the nutrition sites. So if you're a district that, for instance, offers and claims meals for a local private school that's not part of your LEA, all those children need to be on your Sunbucks file, even though they wouldn't be on a standard enrollment file from your district. The template that must be followed for the file is in the chat and can always be downloaded from the Sunbucks resource webpage for schools, which is pasebt.com. And the June file submission is going to be from June 1st through June 30th. So a little bit of background on the new requirement this year for the non-CEP schools. So the USDA requires states that participate in Sunbucks to identify all students from the school year who become eligible for free or reduced meals over the summer months. These students are eligible for the summer Sunbucks benefit. DHS has most of what they need to identify these students in the state's DC file. However, they do not have information about students whose eligibility changes in the summer due to household meal applications. Therefore, this year, DHS is asking that non-CEP schools submit a second Sunbucks file in September of just those students who changed to free and reduced eligibility due to a household meal application from the point of their June file through August 31st. And again, details of this will be circulated to schools shortly after the June data collection. Before we actually get into the details of the file, let's talk about the full users of PASES or Primero Edge. You have this dynamic query in that system, and this screen shows you how to access that dynamic query. This only applies to full users of PASES, not DC-only users. And the reason for that is because DC-only users do not put all their student eligibilities in Primero Edge. The full users do. So it's a useless report for the DC-only users of Primero Edge, but it's very useful for the full users. We hope more and more full users use this query this year, since the ultimate goal is to begin shifting to PASES for the Sunbucks data. In a perfect world, as soon as possible, it would be nice for the state to be able to pull the data directly out of the Primero Edge system. However, this is going to require that schools ensure the integrity and completeness of the data in the PASES that would be used directly for the state benefit, the Sunbucks benefit. But that is the goal, to eliminate the redundancy that schools currently have now with Sunbucks, where you have to submit a student file to our standalone Sunbucks system. So the caveat is that PASES users who use the dynamic query must vet all the data when they run the query and pull the report up. You must make sure before submitting it for Sunbucks that the data is complete, because like I said, in 23-24 last year, when schools used the dynamic query, they found holes in their data, which included the missing parent and guardian info, missing PA secure IDs, other categorical eligible children that were not identified as free, students who remain active in the Primero Edge system, even though they were placed out to other LEAs all year. Those students can't be on your Sunbucks files, so that was an issue with the query. And students from other LEAs who the SFA offers and claims meal for were missing in the Primero Edge system for the people that use the query. So to use this report as is for Sunbucks will not work unless these and other data holes in Primero Edge are filled. So instructions for running the query are on the screen. I won't list them out. They're pretty clear how you get to the query. Make sure one important thing about this, and it should be a moot point since everybody has to submit their file by June 30th, but this query must be run prior to June 30th or else it'll switch to the next school year and the data will be inaccessible for this year. So make sure you run the query before June 30th. And again, just a reminder, the form for questions is in the chat along with the two attachments, which are the template that you need for your school file and the slides from this presentation. So make sure to use the form for any questions that you have. So here are some pointers for all schools, no matter what system or process is used to create the Sunbucks student file. Number one, this year we created a new Sunbucks student file checklist that we encourage all schools to use before submitting their student file. And the link in this on this slide can be clicked to go to that checklist. That checklist will be within a couple days will be located on the Sunbucks website for schools, which again is pasebt.com. Very shortly, it will be out there. Number two, make sure to include all students at all sites that NSLP meals were offered and claimed. This includes pre-K, Head Start, and students from many other schools. We had some unfortunate issues last year where schools offered meals to the Head Start students, NSLP meals, and the children were not put onto the Sunbucks file. I think I mentioned that DHS then had to intervene with us and we had to work with the schools. Number three, only include homeschooled, virtual, or outplaced students if they also were enrolled at any time for in-person classes and participated in the school meal program in 24-25. So if the child is 100% homeschooled, virtual, or outplaced, you do not need to put them on your Sunbucks file. Number four, only list a student one time in your file. If a student withdraws and returns or shifts amongst buildings, list them in the last building they attended and with their oldest beginning and newest ending enrollment date in 24-25. So you're only going to list them once. Number five, CEP schools should not list all their students as free. You're going to receive an error if you try to upload a file from a CEP school where all the children are listed as free. You only list the free and reduced students that are DC or other categorically eligible. All other students should be listed as paid in your Sunbucks file for CEP schools. Number six, there's no student age restriction for Sunbucks. As long as the student attended in-person classes and participated in school meal program in 24-25, they should be reported on your Sunbucks file. And lastly, the file is submitted in CSV, delimited format. So here is the layout. This should look familiar to people that have done this file. The layout has not changed since 23-24. These are all the columns that are in the file. Remember that you must submit it as a CSV file. And also remember in the headings in red, there's information about what is expected in the column. But a more detailed synopsis of what's included, what must be included in the columns is in the second tab of the template. There are two tabs in this worksheet. One is called the data dictionary, and that gives you a very detailed accounting of what must be in each column. So we're briefly going to go through these columns. And for those of you that have done this file, Please, thank you for your patience as we go through these. Column A is the School Food Authority or SFA name. This is not a person's name. This is your main LEA, local education agency name. So for instance, if you're a district, this is your full district name. If you're a private single school, this would be your private single school name. Column B is your administrative unit number. This is your AUN. And for school nutrition, this is also known as your agreement number. It's a 9-digit number with dashes as shown, 3 hyphens. Column C is your school building name. And this is the building that the student was enrolled in for 24-25. And it should be the full name, no abbreviations. Column D is the school building's branch ID, or more commonly known as the site or building ID. This number must be 4 digits, and you can find these numbers in CN pairs if you want to know them or don't know them. If a site ID is more than 4 digits, you should use the last 4 digits for this column. Every site covered by your LEA's nutrition agreement should be in your Sunbucks file. When you upload your file, our system will check to make sure that you've got all of the sites under your school nutrition program listed in your Sunbucks file. Column E is the student's PA Secure ID number, and this is assigned to students by PDE. Some schools don't utilize the PA Secure IDs, so what you should do in this column instead is use the student ID that you use with Primero Edge. Column F is the student's first name. As many of you know, the upload program will provide errors if anything other than letters, hyphens, or apostrophes are included in this column. Unlike the school and building's names, the student's name cannot include spaces. Schools typically replace spaces in names with hyphens. Column G is the student's middle name. The same rules as the first name apply here. Column H is the student's last name, and again, the same rules apply. Column I is the student's date of birth, and this must be in 2-digit month, 2-digit day, and 4-digit year format. Column J is the primary address on file in the school's SIS for the student. Schools can decide what address to report for homeless, runaway, migrant, or foster students based on the student's individual circumstances. If it's uncertain whether the child will be at a home or a permanent address for these benefits, schools most often list their own address, and staff distribute benefit cards that are mailed to them for the students. Another option would be to list a general post office general delivery office at the post office nearest the student. A tool for finding the closest post office is listed here, a link to the post office tool. Column K is the student's address, line 2 if needed. Column L is the apartment number if needed, but we ask that if there is an apartment number, move it to column K if possible. Column M is the city of the student's primary address. No abbreviations and no special characters except hyphens and apostrophes. Spaces are allowed in city. Spaces are just not allowed in student and parent names. Column N is the state of the student's primary address, and this should be 2 uppercase letters. Column O is the zip code for the student's primary address. This will be used to activate new Sunbucks cards, so it's very important that this be correct. Zip codes can be 5 digits or 5 plus 4. Whoops. Column P is the student's meal eligibility for the 24-25 school year, and it's case sensitive, and it should be free, reduced, or paid. All DC matches and other eligibilities must be current through as close to the file submission date as possible, so that these eligibilities are as current as possible when you submit your Sunbucks file. Column Q is the county of the student's primary address. It's not the school's county, it's the child's county of their address. Column R is the student's DHS case number, if known. This number is extremely helpful for DHS to identify the student in their system. This number can be found in Primero Edge or PASES, and from household applications if you're a non-CEP school. The number should include the leading 0 if one is present. Column S is the first name of the student's primary parent or guardian on file in the school's SIS. It should be the same parent or guardian associated with the student's mailing address. The column rules are the same as for student names, no spaces or special characters other than hyphens or apostrophes. And one thing that's new for this year, if the parent or guardian's name is unknown, put the student's first name in this column. Don't use a word like none or unknown. Put the student's name here if you don't know the parent's first name. Same for the column T, the parent's last name. If you don't know that name, put the student's last name. Column U is the phone number of the student's primary parent or guardian if known, and it's in 10-digit format with 2 hyphens. Column V is the email address of the student's primary parent if known. Column W is the student's beginning enrollment date for the 24-25 school year. The date must be between July 1st, 2024 and June 30th, 2025. Since a student can only be listed on the report once, you must list the oldest beginning enrollment date if the child has multiple starting dates in the year. Column X is the student's ending enrollment date. This may be left blank if the student is still enrolled with your LEA. If a student has multiple ending dates during the year, list the newest. And column Y is for DHS use. You should leave it blank. When you're ready to upload your file, you go to the Sunbuck School webpage, again, which is pasebt.com. Click the upload file icon and this screen will appear. You must first fill out the brief form that is on the screen. And the most important thing here is to put in the password, your Sunbuck's password, which we will provide to you. We've provided in the past and we'll do it again. The password and the AUN are used to verify that you are allowed to get into the system. Once you've filled out the form, at the bottom of the screen, you click Choose File to pull in the file from your computer and then click Upload. When the file passes validation, you're going to see a green success message on the screen, and you'll also receive an email confirmation. But if the upload fails, and some of you that have done this before know this, you are going to get errors presented to you on the screen for every cell that you have an error in. So if you have a whole column that has problems, and let's say you have 1,000 students, you'll see 1,000 errors. So some common obstacles and errors that schools encounter are listed here. We're going to go through these. I'm not going to tell you, I'm not going to go through all the steps for resolving them because they're on the screen, but I do want to point out the most common things that we have to work with schools with on their Sunbucks file. First are the spaces in student names and parent names. Many schools may not know that there's a tool that you can use in Excel to get rid of those spaces quickly. So let's say you have 100 errors in your student first names because you have spaces in those names. You can go to that column and in Excel use the find and select feature to remove those spaces for the whole column. And this gives you the instructions on how to do that. Do use caution, though, with removing spaces using find and select, because if you have spaces at the beginning or end of the name, it will insert a hyphen at the beginning and end if you use find and select and you're replacing the space with a hyphen. And so that causes another error because you can't have hyphens at the beginning or end of a name. Number two, special characters like commas or periods in name. Again, you're going to use the find and select tool to get rid of those quickly instead of doing them one by one. Number three is names still fail after you remove spaces and special characters. Sometimes this can be because there are extra spaces at the beginning or the end of the names that you don't realize are there. Also check that the name is within the 26 character limit. There also may be some invisible character remnants from if you've pasted the data from another program. You can try to get rid of those by clicking in the cell and clicking clear contents and then re-enter the information. But if that doesn't work, call us at the Sunbuck School Help Desk and we'll help you. Number four, AUNs fail because oftentimes they appear to be in the correct format with hyphens, but it's because the column has been formatted to show hyphens, but the hyphens are not in the number itself. So a quick fix for this is to go to your top AUN on the top row, key it in correctly with the hyphens in the correct places, and then copy it all the way down, and that'll fix the AUN problem. Number five is dates fail, but they appear to be in the correct format. And the reason for this is, again, someone that has created the file has formatted the column to show the correct format, but the numbers themselves are text values, and Excel doesn't see them as dates. So there's a quick fix for that, and that's using the text to columns feature in Excel, and that will correct any dates that are Excel thinks are text values. Number six is zip codes with leading zeros that are failing. This occurs when zip codes are pasted into Excel and the leading zero drops. To retain those zeros, you can rekey the zero with an apostrophe in front, and that will retain the zero. Number seven, your beginning enrollment dates are failing. 9 times out of 10, this occurs because the beginning enrollment date that is entered is before the 24-25 school year. So remember, the date can't be prior to July 1st, 2024. Number 8, the total number of students in your file and or the total number of free and reduced students in your file is more than 20% different than the building data your LEA reported to PDE early in the school year. So our validation program does a real-time comparison of the figures that you reported to PDE early in the year compared to your Sunbucks file. We allow for a 20% buffer because we need to account for the fact that you may have students that withdraw and enroll across the school year. But the 20% buffer is, that's a big buffer. So all we're really trying to do here is catch large gaps in your school data. And usually what we catch with this check are schools that have forgotten to include a whole site in their file, such as a site that is not part of your LEA, but that you offer and claim NSLP meals for instance. And number 9 is just a reminder to save your file as a CSV in CSV format, and this is how to do it. One thing that some schools did is pick the wrong CSV format. In Excel, make sure you choose CSV, delimited. So let's quickly recap the CEP schools, things that are specific to CEP schools. First, not all students at CEP schools will automatically receive Sunbucks. It's based on the student's regular NSLP meal eligibility. So only the DC children and the categorically eligible students at CEP schools will automatically get Sunbucks. All the other parents must apply if they feel their child is eligible. So CEP schools should list only their DC or categorically eligible students as free or reduced. All the others should be listed as paid. And it's important that CEP schools have their 24-25 DC matching current prior to submitting their Sunbucks student file to make sure all the eligible students are identified. CEP schools obviously do not use household meal applications to determine meal eligibility. They're not allowed to use household applications. And you cannot use the economic survey in place of a household meal application for Sunbucks. The only children, again, that will be reported as free or reduced are the DC or other categorically eligible students. And schools that have a mixture of CEP and non-CEP sites will report the data the same way for both sites. It's just the CEP sites will not have any children that are free or reduced due to household applications. And I also want to summarize some things that are specific to residential childcare institutions, or RCCIs. Often RCCIs call us and ask why they need to submit a file since all their children are housed and fed for free. And the reason for that is they have to because they participate in the National School Lunch Program and School Breakfast Program. And the USDA requires all NSLP schools that are participating in Sunbucks to report their students. RCCI should list their residential students as free meal eligibility. All the children at RCCIs are listed as free. If the student's household has a state, well, I should say, the Sunbucks benefit will be applied to RCCI students the exact same way as any other student. If a household address is reported and that household has an access card with the state, the benefits are going to be loaded on that card. Otherwise, it's going to go on a previously issued Sunbucks card, or a Sunbucks card will be mailed to the RCCI students. RCCIs often have to decide what address they use for students, and it depends on the student's circumstances. They may use the RCCI address and distribute Sunbucks cards, which are sent to them for the students. They may use the student's home address if it's anticipated the student will be home during the benefit issuance period. So let's talk about resources. Want to make sure that everybody's good on where all the resources are. So we're in the home stretch, and then we will I'll try to answer as many questions as possible. So for schools, your main resources are us here at the help desk, either via email or phone, the school webpage, which I'm going to show you here in a second, the webpage that we maintain for Sunbucks, and a U.S. Postal Service location tool if you need to use that to find the general delivery address for children that don't have permanent addresses. And for families, I've listed here all the resources that families have access to, which primarily is the DHS webpage, the statewide customer service center that can be called to answer their questions, the fact that there are Sunbucks family flyers, which will be at the bottom of the DHS Sunbucks webpage very soon, the county assistance locator tool, the income guideline tool to see what the income is for families that need to apply, and a pre-recorded FAQ line for families is listed here. And also a good resource for anybody that wants to know anything about school nutrition is the Food Resource and Action Center. So I've listed their webpage on this slide as well. This is a kind of a snippet from the webpage that we maintain for schools. It's a visual. We've added some new colorful icons in the middle of the page that should be pretty self-explanatory of what they're used for. Along the top, the second icon is where you would go to download the data collection template, the Excel template that you're going to use to create your file if you need it. Right beside that is the upload file icon that you will use to upload your file. Down below that in the second row on the left is the training and program materials icon. And underneath that icon is a whole bunch of information for schools that is useful. We have an FAQ document there. The file checklist is there that we've created this year for you to use. The webinar slides and recording from these webinars will be there. Family scenario document. So there's a document, it's a one-page document that gives you the most common family scenarios that they inquire about and the steps, quick steps that have to be taken to resolve the issue. And the family eligibility tool, eligibility navigator tool, there's a flow chart of how the questions that the family has to go through. So I'm going to quickly unshare my screen and go to that web, to those tools to show you. Bear with me here. Oops, that's the wrong one. I'm almost there. Okay. All right, so this is the new checklist that we have created for schools, and it literally goes one by one through the most common issues that schools have in their files and things they forget to do. So what we recommend is that you pull this checklist up either from this presentation or from the web page. And right before you are getting ready to submit your file, you go down the checklist and make sure you've done all of the items in this checklist. The number one item is spot check 10 to 20 of your students in your file. And we added this because we want to prevent those sorting errors that a handful of schools had that caused the 9,000 errors last year. And all of their students had misaligned data. So if you spot check 10 to 20 students throughout your file and go all the way across all the columns and make sure the data is correct, this should check any sorting errors that you've had in your file. So that's the checklist. Next is the family scenario document that I was referring to just now on our webpage that you can get under the training and program materials icon. These are very common family inquiries and the steps towards resolution that has to happen after each one. It tells you when you have a family that says they no longer have their Sunbucks card, these are the steps they need to take to resolve. If you have a family that says they can't get through on the DHS state helpline, this is what you have to do. So there are 8 scenarios here, the most common scenarios. So you can use this sheet. If a family turns to you, you can't really answer their specific question, but at least this gives you an idea of what they need to do to resolve their issue. Okay. And lastly, the eligibility navigator flowchart. We had a lot of schools ask that they didn't, last year said they didn't know about the eligibility navigator and that they would have told their families about it that asked. This is where if you get a family that wonders why they haven't received a benefit, you would want to send them to the eligibility navigator on the DHS web page and have them run through the questions. And for your information, the schools, this is the flowchart of what they're asked and all the possibilities based on their answers. Ending with your child is not eligible, your child's automatically eligible, or your child is not automatically eligible, so you may want to consider applying. Those are the 3 outcomes for all their questions. So all of these things are on our webpage and they're under the training and program materials. Also on our webpage, or I'll back up one, also on our webpage is down here in this middle is the school portal. That is something that we implemented last year. Not too many schools used it, but we would like to ask schools to use it more this year because we should not share student files via email. And this secure portal allows you to contact us and attach your student file if you need us to help you troubleshoot it. So we'd like schools to use the portal off of our webpage when they need to send their file for us to look at. And all you do is you choose your LEA name from the dropdown. You put in your AUN and the same password that you use to upload your Sunbucks file, and that'll give you access to the portal. You'll see all your old tickets and any new tickets that you have pending with us. This is a kind of a collage of some of the features that are on the Sunbucks webpage for families. The very first thing that you see when you go to the web page is a little pop-up for the eligibility navigator. And parents should use that if they want to know if their child is eligible. So other things is an eligibility section on that web page, which gives very detailed information about which children are or aren't eligible. There's also a very detailed Sunbucks FAQ section. And also, as I mentioned at the bottom of that webpage, very soon will be a whole collection of Sunbucks flyers that the PDE group put together that can be used to give to families if you want to alert them of the program and or community groups. And here are the acronyms I referred to earlier. You can use those as you need them. And with that, we are going to switch to questions. I'm going to pull up the form. I'm going to stop sharing this and I'm going to pull up the form of questions and see what we have. And I'll try to answer as many as we have in the time remaining. If your questions are all answered, you are absolutely free to go. And thank you very much for attending. Otherwise, I'll answer as many questions as I can right now. So let me pull this up. So Victoria asks, do we include withdrawn students in the submission, e.g. a student who enrolled in 24-25 but withdrew after 3 weeks? The short answer to that, Victoria, is yes. You include any students that were with you at any time in 24-25. Lisa asks, if this is not mandated, why does it seem as though we are required to do it? Well, you're strongly encouraged to do it, Lisa. And like I said, last year, we had nearly 100% of NSLP schools, LEAs in Pennsylvania participate. But it is, ultimately, it is your school's choice. You are not mandated to do the program. It will mean, you would want to think about that thoroughly, however, if you didn't participate, because the students in the school that are eligible, it might cause an issue with increased parent calls. Ryan asks, what if a school was CEP in 24-25 but is not in 25-26? Well, for this file, for this summer, Ryan, that doesn't matter. You would go by the fact that you were CEP last year. Not in 25-26. That would be something then that your rules would be a little different next year for submitting your file. Ryan also asked, is there a way to have the information go directly to the PIMS people instead of the food service department, since PIMS people are more responsible for student data? It's interesting that you say that, because we recently presented at the PDE Data Summit, which was, and it was almost all PIMS people. And the PIMS people wondered in some cases why they were doing it. I think that the easy answer, Ryan, is it really is probably a collaborative effort in most schools. The PIMS people don't know nutrition like the food service people, and the food service people certainly aren't as used to compiling, or in some cases, not all cases, but they may not be as used to compiling the data for a file like this. So I think whatever works in your school with the most logical group to compile the file, but I would think that it would need to be collaborative for the PIMS people to know the student eligibilities in the Primero Ed system if needed. Christine asks, A student that is on the DC list and attended a CEB school at any point during the school year eligible? Yes, if the child is on the DC list and they go to a CEP school, those are children that you would report as free or reduced based on whatever the DC matching shows you in Primero Edge. And if the child switched to PA Cyber Charter in March, if they were with you, if the child was with you at any point during the year, you should put them on your file. Tricia asked, do you mean that after 4 months, the benefit will be lost by the family if unused? Tricia, not necessarily. If they, at no fault of their own, never received the benefit, they will be reissued a card. If the family lives at the address where a card was sent and they just didn't use it, the benefit is lost. It depends on the scenario of the individual family and whether they did or didn't receive the actual card. Ryan asked, last year you provided language we could copy and paste to our website telling parents who reach out. I'm anticipating you will do so again this year. When will this information be available? We actually are not intending to do that, Ryan, but we absolutely can work with you to provide some information. We think at this point, because families are notified, there's language now in the regular household letter that refers to Sunbucks and whether they're automatically eligible. So we would recommend a short blurb on the website that just refers to the Sunbucks program and lists those resources. And perhaps schools that want to be more proactive could use the flyers that are on the DHS Sunbucks to post to their webpage and or circulate to families. But I'll make a note, Ryan, even if it's a short blurb, for us to make some suggestions to schools. Aaron asks, if the family previously received Sunbucks card but has misplaced it, will they need to contact DHS for a replacement card? Yes, Aaron, they will. And they should do that sooner rather than later when the benefit period starts, because again, the benefits will be applied to that card in some cases, and they don't want it to be expunged. So they should do that sooner rather than later. Are we to include students who are free and reduced if they have left the district during the school year? Yes, any student that is with you at any point during the school year should be on your file. Now, if they've left you, you need to make sure to show in the ending enrollment date that they've left. So you would have an ending enrollment date for those children, but they should be on your report. Karen asks, if we're not a Primero Edge full user, do we need to indicate in Primero Edge the foster, homeless, et cetera, students not on the DC list? Do we need to change the status of students to free when receiving household applications? That's your choice, Karen, if you want to go to that. If you do those steps, then you would be able to use the query in Primero Edge as well. Typically, the DC only users do not do those steps. So the query in Primero Edge would be useless for you. And also keep in mind that the full users of Primero Edge are sharing their student data with Primero Edge daily in many cases, and in some cases multiple times a day, and they're getting eligibility data back from Primero Edge on a daily basis. So the only problem with DC only users, even if you go to the steps that you're asking about, if your student data is at all stale in Primero Edge, if anything about that student has changed, your report is not going to be as accurate as it would be if you pulled it out of your internal system. Unlike the full users of Primero Edge, where Primero Edge is pretty much as accurate as their internal system. Karen asks, how do I find out if our school is full PASES user? Karen, I can look that up for you, and we'll do so. And I will get back to you directly after the webinar. Jacqueline asks, will this training result in CEU credit certificate? We're getting that clarified with PDE, Jacqueline, and I will get back to you as well. It will actually let everybody know if this does apply for those credits. Andrew asks, what if a school doesn't use or have PA secure IDs? If you're a school that doesn't use them, then you should use the IDs that your school uses in the Primero Edge system. Carrie asks, is there a letter like the one for 2024, like there was last year with the updated year on it, or did I miss it on the website? Well, Carrie, hopefully this is good news, but PDE and DHS do not require schools to send letters to families this year about Sunbucks. So hopefully that's good news to at least some of you. Samantha asks, we are fully cyber and do not offer student meals. If our compulsory age students do not receive SNAP, TANF, or MA, they will need to complete an application. Is that correct? Samantha, no. If you're not an NSLP school, when your parents apply to DHS, the first thing DHS looks at in an application is whether the children went to an NSLP school. And if you're fully cyber, you're not an NSLP school. So the only children at your school that are going to receive Sunbucks are the ones that are, like you say, are compulsory school age and receive SNAP, TANF, or Medicaid with qualifying income. Brandy asks, we have 2 sites we provide and claim meals for that have both our students and out-of-district students. The sites are very transient. Some students stay at sites only a few days, weeks, then go back to their home district. I can't see the rest of it. Let's see here. I get the gist of what you're asking. I can't see to the right. I'm sorry, Brandy, but you have to do the best that you can. You have to try. Now would be a good time to work with the out-of-district sites to try to get that information that's needed for Sunbucks. Technically, the rule is if they're with you at any point and they have access to the NSLP or SBP meal program, then they should be included on your report. So I think the answer is you're going to have to do the best you possibly can in working with the other entities to get the data you need for those students. Kelly asks, we host a Head Start classroom, and last year they refused to provide me with the student information to include in our file. If that's the response I get again this year, what should I do? Kelly, if you would like in that scenario, if you try to reach out and they say the same thing, you can contact us and we can try to work with that entity to explain to them why the data is being requested. Basically, first of all, you should only be including those children if you are feeding them NSLP or school breakfasts. If you're just hosting a classroom and they feed themselves or have a different food program, then no, they don't even need to be on your report. But if you're truly including them in your meal program, you need to try to get the info and then alert us if they don't cooperate, and we can work with them and or PDE to try to explain why the information is important. They are going to get a lot of parent calls in that scenario if they don't provide the info. Eileen asks, students that were 100% virtual or outplaced, they are removed from the file, correct? Yes, Eileen, that is correct. However, if at any time during this 24-25 school year, they were in your building and were offered to participate in the meal program, then you would want to include them, even if it's a short time. Antoinette asks, what if the family has already discarded the Sunbucks card from last year? Antoinette, they need to contact DHS using those telephone numbers as soon as they can, because if the 2025 benefit is put on that card and it's not used in 4 months, they'll lose it. Erica says, I'm not a full PASES user, but I process all income apps in there too. Would I be able to use Primero Edge? Erica, you would, but I would throw up a large caution to you that you need to make sure that you vet all the data in the query report that comes out of Primero Edge to make sure that you've got current eligibilities for everybody, that you've got current addresses, you've got current parent information. Because again, those full users are sharing that data from their SIS constantly. If you're small and you don't have many students in Primero Edge, that certainly is manageable manually, and maybe that's what you're doing. So if in that case, absolutely. Just make sure you're picking up any foster kids and homeless, runaway, migrant, because they need to be free on your report too. That was the last question on the sheet, and there we are close to time. I will quickly check the chat, although I have not been looking at that, so hopefully some of my colleagues have been keeping up with that. Let me see here. Let's see if there are any questions that were put there. Okay, Ryan had submitted questions, but he put them on the form. Krista asked, will the recording be sent to us via email to review? The recording will be on the webpage, Krista. It won't be sent out via email, and the slides will not either. They're included in the chat here and also on the webpage, the pasebt.com webpage under the training folder. Christine asks, as a student that is on the DC list and attended CP school at any time. Oh, okay. Yeah, that was one. Could you please include a picture of the Sunbucks card? Karen, yes, actually, we can get a picture of that. We should have put that in here. That's a very good suggestion. I will make sure to get a picture of the Sunbucks card, and I will send that to you, and that's a good thing to send to everybody. Okay. All right. All right, I guess that is it, everybody. We have 2 minutes left. I will hang out and just watch the question form to see if any other questions come in. But other than that, thank you very, very much for attending, and just I can't express enough gratitude for your cooperation with the program. We had a very, very good cooperation last year, and we anticipate it this year as well. It's $120 to buy groceries for the children over the summer. So it really is quite a nice benefit that helps the families. Okay, one last question from Sandy. We have a sponsor-to-sponsor agreement with 2 organizations that provides meals for approximately 270 students. The 2 organizations did receive reimbursement for the meals consumed. These students are not reported by our school district. You do not need to include them on your Sunbucks report then, Sandy. And with that, everybody, I think we are basically at time. So thanks again, and have good afternoons, and we will talk to you probably in coming weeks and certainly in June. Thank you.